Reconciliation starts here. Forgiveness starts here, too.
If we're doing a real story with real people, you want to get it the way it was.
I want you to be acting director of the Bureau of Investigation.
I will take the job, Mr. Stone. I'm always fascinated with real-life stories just on a personal level, because life is almost always so much more bizarre than anything you could write on the page.
We're going to end up in the Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus?
As much as a motion picture can, that is trying to encapsulate a real moment that was important to people, I think Mr. Eastwood has succeeded. I think he's encapsulated a moment that somehow binds us all together in the best of all possible ways. We are either survivors or we are witnesses.
Go ahead, Ray.
To do justice to a true life story, a filmmaker must have imagination and integrity. Clint Eastwood has met that challenge numerous times.
This is the captain. Brace for impact.
The story of the miracle on the Hudson made front-page news around the world. But Eastwood went beyond the headlines to tell a side of the Sully Sullenberger story few people knew.
I was reading some other things at the time, and every night the girls in my office would say, "Have you read the thing on Sully?" About the third time, I thought, well, there must be some reason. So I picked it up and read it and liked it right away.
When Clint wanted to do this, it was kind of a dream come true for us because this is such a human story and a story about hope and about extraordinary things happening to ordinary people. And that's the kind of story he tells the best.
I don't feel like a hero. I'm just a man who was doing his job.
Sully is the real deal, and Clint is the real deal. So these two guys met, and within 5 minutes, they got along like a house on fire.
Clint read the script on a Monday, and then a week and a half after that, he was at our house. Clint told us that it was important to him that he come to our house and meet us before he made any casting decisions.
You know, I can see why he became sort of an iconic figure, because he's like Gary Cooper or somebody. He just walking in off the room, you kind of go, oh yeah.
After meeting Sully, I think he felt like Sully has a kind of everyman quality. You know, he's just a normal, really lovely man. And I think it really reminded Clint of Jimmy Stewart, who Clint knew, of course.
And Clint said, "Who's today's Jimmy Stewart?" And of course, it was Tom Hanks.
When you're kind of making a list in your mind of possible people who could play it, Tom was one of the first people we thought about. We didn't think he'd be available at that time. I think he was planning on taking a little time off.
For about 6 years, my head was down and I was plowing through a work schedule, which really meant mentally, spiritually, physically, I was beat. But now look, I'm a selfish actor. I'm a competitive actor. And the screenplay that Todd wrote plays, I think, just like the movie did. I think I read it in probably 17 minutes.
He got 5 pages in and said, well, this isn't what I expected. And then he got 20 pages in and he's like, wow.
I even had to call my wife. She said, so how was it? And I said, it's so great. And she said, oh, well, then I guess you're just gonna have to go off and do it then, aren't you? I've delivered 1 million passengers over 40 years in the air, but in the end, I'm gonna be judged on 208 seconds. Good afternoon. Sully was not interested in him being made into more of a obvious hero. He wanted it to be the authentic procedure.
And you understood after 10 minutes with the guy, of course, he pulled this off. No one else could have.
No one warned us. No one said you are going to lose both engines at a lower altitude than any jet in history. But be cool, just make a left turn for LaGuardia like you're going back to pick up the milk. This was dual engine loss at 2,800 feet, followed by an immediate water landing with 155 souls on board. No one has ever trained for an incident like that. No one. If you're a fireman, if you're a cop, you're a soldier, if you're an aviator, heroism is going to be expected of you at any time. Mounting that burden on yourself is something that heroes do. As the captain of that ship, his heroic act, I think, was to follow his instincts as opposed to the steps in the book. I had to rely on my experience of managing the altitude and speed of thousands of flights over 4 decades.
You're saying you didn't do any?
I eyeballed it. His instincts kicked in and made a landing that actually I don't believe it has ever been made before. That's not supposed to happen. The plane's not supposed to come out of the sky, and you're not supposed to be able to make a landing like that. I went back and looked at all of the other YouTube videos of these kind of like aviation disasters, and planes cartwheel when that happens, and they fall apart, you know, on impact, and they don't come in, and they're not able to make those landings. There were 155 people on the pier in a circumstance where there could have been 82 body bags and then a bunch of other bodies that disappeared were never seen again. That didn't happen. You put it on the shoulders of literally, you know, one guy.
Got a count? 155.
155.
It's official. 155.
155. He will never say that he's a hero, but that was one heroic thing that he did. It wasn't just me, it was all of us. It was Jeff and Donna and Sheila and Doreen and all of the passengers, the rescue workers, the air traffic control, the ferry boat crews and the scuba cops. We all did it. We survived.
In his commitment to telling the story as truthfully as possible, Eastwood hired some of the real-life heroes who had lived it to play themselves on screen.
We ended up using the real ferry captain that was the first ferry to arrive.
Keep it coming, Paulie. I see you on one. The people were actually in the raft and looking up, and, you know, they were all actors, so they were acting scared and wet and cold, and it was just like that day almost, just like it.
When we were in New York, we had the opportunity to use the real rescue divers. It was really a thrill to have the 2 real guys jumping out of the helicopter, reenacting what they did on the day.
This is the job that kind of defines your career. I became a New York City cop to help people, and this was the opportunity to have that done and have it done on such a great event.
And all the guys on the tugs, they remembered everything down to a T. They knew what line they were coming across, they knew what happened. It's astounding how many people jumped into the fray and helped save all those people.
All those attentions to detail have been really important for Clint. We don't deviate very much from the real look and the real feeling.
I want you to know I did the best I could.
Clint had a very clear vision for how to tell this story. He said, I just get my idea that I want to do something, and I just will it to happen. And as I've been on the set for the first time on a shoot, it's obvious to me that what really happens is he wills it, and then 100 or more people create it and make it happen under his direction.
Never one to shy away from controversy, Eastwood added to his list of true stories a film about one of the most powerful figures in American history, J. Edgar Hoover.
Both Clint and I picked up this script and were fascinated, first of all, with J. Edgar Hoover. He's been this very mysterious, iconic figure in American history for such a long period of time. To see somebody tackle his life story was incredible.
The story that Clint tells is told all from the internal point of view of Hoover's psyche.
And in such an emotionally moving way, concentrating on really the Clyde-Tolson relationship.
And I love you, Edgar.
It's a love story. Clyde Tolson and Hoover became fast friends. They dined together every day, and Hoover never married, and neither did Tolson. People kind of assumed that they were a couple.
Take my word for it, Mr. Hoover. All the admiration in the world can't fill the spot where love goes.
In a lot of ways, this story is a story of a man that never got to have that part of humanity, that kind of love, that kind of relationship.
Do you remember what happened to Daffy? After the school custodian discovered him in a hoop skirt and flower bonnet.
Yes, Mother, he shot himself 6 weeks after.
That's right. And I thank God every day that my own sons don't suffer from his condition. Edgar. I'd rather have a dead son than a daffodil for a son.
If you tell a kid, an incredibly promising kid, that he will not and should not ever have access to love in his life, what fills that hole? And for him, I think it was admiration. And what was so tragic is that he filled it with political admiration. And there's nothing more fleeting in this country than political admiration. And so when he started to lose it, he held on to it so strong, he held on to it like it was his lover.
Do I kill everything that I love?
There are times when you're repulsed by this man, but there are times where you kind of fall in love with him too, and you feel for him.
I think it's a story ultimately of how absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Sometimes you need to bend the rules a little in order to keep your country safe, right?
The more power he gains, the more paranoid and strange and diabolical he becomes. And I think Clint was really intrigued with that.
He's part good guy, part bad guy. The audiences will take away what they want to take away from it, for better or for worse.
No true story of courage and perseverance can match that of the man who endured 27 years of imprisonment to lift South Africa out of apartheid and into the modern era.
There's no one on our planet of the 7 billion of us who has had more of a positive influence on more people than Nelson Mandela.
Morgan and I thought the best thing to do was to go in person and ask Madiba's blessing to tell this story.
He's been very welcoming, very, oh, that's Morgan. Have him come over.
No. Okay, consider it. I'm happy to see you.
The strangest thing about Madiba, or anybody like Madiba, is, okay, you're here in the presence of greatness. What do you say? So how about those Yankees? Where are you going to go after that? Sit and hope he has something to say to you. And of course, Madiba does. What I did tell him, however, was that I was honored that he had mentioned me to play him. In order to build our nation, we must all exceed our own expectations. People need to say, how do you feel about playing Mandela? I mean, are you concerned? Are you worried? And I would say a little bit. I have to get the voice. I have to get the rhythm. I have to get the accent. This country is hungry for greatness.
Morgan has the same stature and same sort of charismatic nature, so it works well for us.
It's the way he walks, I think, that makes me to go, oh, by the way, that's Morgan. So I think he has mastered his work so much that without even thinking anything, you're just like, that's the man.
I live the life every day of seeing Mr. Mandela. It is really the closest ever. They look alike, they sound alike now, they walk alike. And I actually had to tell him the other day, no, stop speaking like Madiba because, it's scary.
It's good that Morgan came here because otherwise I would not have seen you.
If you have the right person for the role, as Morgan is clearly the right person to play Mandela, there's an ease with which everything happens if everyone's in the job that they should be in.
Can we see the president's cell?
Yes, of course. We've done it up just the way it was.
Part of his greatness, I think, comes from the fact that he was forced to sit still for 27 years.
And I was in his presence when he said, 27 years in prison gives you a lot of time to think.
We actually were concerned that the cell was too small to shoot in, so we built one on stage. And Clint got in there with the camera, and he said, no, this will work. And he wanted to do it where it really happened, so we shot it all right there and never used the set that we built. It's moving to be in that tiny cell and think about having to spend so many years of your life in such a small space. It's profound. There's just no other way to describe it.
I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul.
I think this is a really good use of our time. Given everything that's happening in the world, I mean, it's a good time to retell this and remind all of us that this happened, and a reminder that we're all in this together.